Good evening. Hey, everybody. So we're here at 6 p.m. and this is Ask the Chef Vegan. I should say plant-based. I'm trying to change the narrative. Plant-based Thanksgiving holiday edition. Okay, so you should have your questions ready for me. I have a list of questions that I received in my inbox today. So what I'd like to do is alternate, is read one from the inbox and then take one of your questions. Now, if you do have questions, just put it in the chat area or the comment section, and then I'll just take them as they come. However, we have a lot to get through because people are asking me about what can they substitute, just ingredients and recipes. Now, I can't really get to recipes. I will give you a lot of information about how to make certain things and how to make it taste great, and definitely some hacks and some substitutions. I'll also give you some name brands of things that you can use because there are specific ones that I really like, and I mean they've passed my kitchen test, my recipe test. So I'm going to pass that information on to you. So if you have questions, again, drop them in the comment section. I'm going to go through this. The first one was, what can I substitute cow's milk for or dairy for? So my absolute go-to is coconut milk. I love coconut milk because it contains, well, let's just say this. If you've ever purchased canned coconut milk, you put it in the refrigerator and you let it sit overnight. Once you open the can in the morning, what you get is a separation of solids and liquids. The solid is pure fat. So you can use that because the entire can, not just the milk fat. But what I'm saying is the canned coconut milk contains all the milk fat and the richness that you need that would be a great substitution for cow's milk, which has milk fat, which has the fat in it, but you won't be getting it from an animal source. This is a plant source. Now, there are a couple of things that you can do because not everyone likes canned, but if you buy a canned coconut milk, my suggestion is you first get organic, and second, you read the label and find out what else is in it. Some brands have guar gum and other things, other stabilizers in it and chemicals added to it. You really want to stay away from those if you can, and try to look for the organic ones that just have coconut milk in it. Now, I like the Trader Joe's brand. I'm not plugging them. They're not, well, I am kind of plugging them, but I'm not getting paid for it. But I just want you to know because this is what I like. I have a stockpile of Trader Joe's coconut milk because I like the texture, I like the flavor, and I use it for my sweet potato pies. I use it for cornbread. I use it for my shakes, my smoothies. It's versatile. And unless you're on a low-fat diet, you can use this for just about anything that you would use dairy milk for. So I highly recommend coconut milk. Now, if you don't want the can, you can always get the coconut out of the fresh Thai coconut. Now, if you go to a conventional store or I don't want to put names out there, but if you go to a specialty produce store or one that sells like organic produce, you're going to pay about $4.99 per coconut. But if you go to the Asian stores, they normally have coconuts like between $1.99 and $2.49 each. So you can get a whole case for what you'd be paying for like a half a dozen somewhere else. So I highly recommend if you have an Asian market, go there, get your coconuts because they're always using them. I think some of these other stores, because they don't use them as often, the price is a little higher. And it probably costs more to ship it from to import it from wherever they're getting it from. Whereas the Asian market, that's part of their cuisine. So they're getting it all the time. They get it in bulk. So, the prices are a little lower. But I've seen it as low as $1.79, but not any higher than $2.49. And that's a great price. So I'm going to link a video in the description box after this live is over, and it will show you how to open and utilize the coconut. Because once you open it, basically all you do is scrape out the inside, which is called the coconut jelly. You put that in a blender, you mix it with a little of the coconut water that comes in already in the coconut. And once you mix it up and it becomes really rich and thick, that's coconut cream. Now, if you add all of the liquid to it, now you've made coconut milk. So easy. The hardest part is really getting the jelly out. And that's why people go to cans, because they don't want to be bothered with actually scraping it all out and then separating some of the shell if they get some of the shell in it. It's an easy process for me because I do it all the time, but you may want to buy can. Now cans are going to run you between $2.29 and $3.99. And that's usually for a 14-ounce can. But again, you can use that as a substitution for dairy milk if you're making cakes or pies, anything that requires milk fat. And yeah, so that's it. So do I have any questions? Any questions so far? Okay, so I don't see any questions right now, but I am going to get to the next question. Someone asked, what can I use instead of mashed potatoes? Okay, some people are not eating like certain vegetables because of the sugar content. So they want an alternative. So the alternative that I normally use is celery root mashed potatoes. Now, if you have a copy of my book Feed, it's in there. It's garlic smashed potatoes, and it's the celery root mashed potato recipe. But really all you do is you get the celery root. It looks really peculiar, but it's a beautiful, beautiful vegetable. It's a root vegetable. Basically it's the bottom or the root part of the celery stalk. So you just take it, you wash it off and scrub it real good. And what you want to do is peel it and then boil it. Boil it will get it done quicker. And then once you boil it, you drain it. And then you're going to put it in the oven for about 10 minutes to kind of dry it out. Because as you boil it, it's going to absorb water. And if you don't eliminate the water or remove the water from it, you're going to have a soggy mash. So once you have done that, you place everything in a blender or food processor. You can use coconut milk, which it makes it really creamy. Only add a little bit of coconut milk or almond milk or nut milk of your choice, or an alternative milk, oat milk if you like, a little at a time, because then you can kind of gauge how thick or how thin you want it. You can put garlic in there, black pepper, and if you don't like the black pepper specks, you can use white pepper and then sea salt, and you mix it up, add a little bit of butter. So the butter, speaking of butter, I like the Miyoko's brand butter. And I also like, well, no, that's the one I use regularly, but I wanted to give you an alternative because that one is a little more expensive, but it has simple ingredients. It has cashews, it has salt, it has, I think, 2 other ingredients in there, but it's really simple. It's not, I don't like a lot of blended oils in my butter because there are some oils that I prefer over others, and some I try to stay away from because they're not as healthy for the body. So I like something a little more pure, but because this is made from cashews and no other oils are blended with it, again, 4 simple ingredients, and it tastes wonderful. I use it for my pie crusts, for my sweet potato pies, and anything else I might use butter for. Like you can use it for croissants, and it really holds up. It tastes like butter, has a mouthfeel like butter, it melts like butter. It just performs really well. And again, it's Miyoko, spelled Miyokos. So it's Miyoko's brand butter. And you can use that for the celery mash. You just add that in the mix, put everything in the blender, and then once it's done, you have a nice creamy side dish and a substitution for mashed potatoes. And to add, if you want a gravy, you can make the spelt gravy that's in the Feed recipe book if you have one. And if you don't, I'll show you how to download the recipe. And then you can make a simple spelt brown gravy with spelt flour, and you can add mushrooms, you can add onions to it. It is a fabulous gravy. Very easy to make. About 5 ingredients that you can make in less than 15 minutes. And if you're staying away from white flour, this is a great alternative, and it doesn't require anything else except maybe an olive oil. And if you don't want to use olive oil, again, you can use the vegan butter. Oh, I was going to say that there's another vegan butter that is available now. I didn't realize Country Crock. They actually make an avocado oil vegan butter. Now, I'm not sure if they have what the ingredients are. You'll have to do your due diligence. But from what I've seen, that was what was available when the Meal Ghost wasn't. So there are 2 butter options for you. Any questions so far? Any questions? Okay. We're going to keep rolling along. And so I've covered the coconut, the mashed celery root, and the gravy pie crust. Now, a lot of people buy the frozen pie crust, and sometimes they even buy the Pillsbury dough. That's actually pretty good. That Pillsbury dough is pretty darn good. You find in the refrigerator section, it comes in a long box, and it's usually rolled, and it has parchment paper so that it doesn't stick. And then you just basically roll it out with your hand, open it up, place it, and just prick it with your fork, and then press it into your pie plate. There's really nothing to do. It's already rolled out. It's about an 1/8 inch thick, and it's ready to blind bake. And then you can just put your filling in. But if you don't want to use anything that has already been processed, and I'm all for making your own food, I have a easy 4-ingredient pie crust recipe that you are not going to believe. It's so easy. You can make turnovers, you can make pies, you can make meat pies with it, whatever. If anything you want to use in order to make if you need a pie crust, I should say, this is a go-to. It's definitely my go-to, and it's easy. So write this down, because I'm going to go through this really quickly so I can get through a couple of these other questions. So the easy pie crust, and this is my recipe. So it's 2 cups of spelt flour. Now, spelt is an alternative to white flour. I will say that spelt flour, even though it's considered an ancient grain, spelt, it does have traces of gluten in it. So if you're okay with gluten, then this might be the one for you if you're looking just for a white flour alternative. If it's not, if you're gluten sensitive, then you may want to stay away from this recipe. But for those who want to use this recipe and make this crust, again, you can use this crust even for your peach cobblers or your apple cobblers. It's fabulous. 2 cups of spelt flour. And you can find spelt flour at really just about anywhere now, but definitely at Whole Foods, at Sprouts, at Fresh Time, wherever. You can get anywhere. 1 teaspoon of sea salt, 2/3 cups of vegan butter, and 7 tablespoons of iced water. So there are 2 important things that you are going to need to know when you're preparing this recipe, and that is having the iced water, and then making sure that your butter is cut in cubes and chilled, measured out, cut in cubes, and chilled. This is very important. You're going to want to work fast and incorporate the butter into the flour and work it, but you don't want to overwork it because your hands are warm. And if it starts melting the butter as you handle it, it's just going to become oily and hard to roll out, and the consistency will not be pie crust like. So you want to make sure that your butter is chilled, and then you have a little bowl of ice water on the side. At least I would say maybe about a 1/2 cup, so you can, put as much or as little as you need in there. But this pie crust is pretty precise, so you don't want to put too much water in. So what you'll do is take your flour and your salt. You put it in your food processor, and you combine those two ingredients. The next thing you do is slowly drop in the feeder the butter chunks while it's cold. I mean, it's got to be cold, cold, cold. Excuse me. Once that's incorporated, very slowly you're going to add the iced water, a tablespoonful at a time. One, and then see how it does. Then two, then three, around four or five, it should be getting there. And what you'll notice is that the food processor will knead the dough, and then it'll start making a ball. It'll start, once it forms into a ball, then you know it's ready. So basically, you take it out, and then you put it in you cover it with like some type of plastic wrap, and you want to make sure that the dough rests in the refrigerator for no less than 30 minutes. If you can do it overnight, fine. 2 hours is even better, but no less than 30 minutes. Again, because you've worked this butter into the dough, and you want to make sure that when you take the dough out and roll it, that you're not overworking it and then you don't melt the butter. Because once you melt the butter, your hands alone are warm, and then your counter may be warm, your kitchen may be warm, but you want to make sure that your pie crust stays intact. And as you roll it out, that it's not sticky and oily, okay? But just make sure you flour your surface really well. And when you roll it out into 1/8 inch thick. If you can get it thinner, that's fine, but normally 1/8 inch is great. And then you can just put it in your pie plate. So again, that's 2 cups of spelt flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2/3 cups of vegan butter, and 7 tablespoons of ice water, and just use as you need. And then from there, you can just follow your pie recipe. You can either blind bake it, or depending on, again, what you're using it for. If you're doing your peach cobbler, you just cut them in strips, and and do the lattice strips, and yeah, and so that's it as far as pie crust. Um, any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat. Okay, so let's move on to greens. Okay, I know that all of you probably already know how to make greens. You've done it a million times, but you've never experimented with plant-based greens, or, greens that are for plant-based people. So, of course, we won't be adding any meat to the greens, or boiling it and then adding the greens. So what you're going to use some seasonings, and that's also in the book, feed, if you have it. Is under crock pot greens. But I'm just going to give you a couple of tips on how to make your greens taste fantastic. First of all, garlic is your friend. You put garlic in there, and you may even consider putting some thin slices of onions into the water and allowing that to boil. You're going to add, and then for your water, instead of just water, you can use vegetable broth and smoked paprika. I love Trader Joe's brand. You can find Victoria's brand at just about any conventional grocers, but for some reason, I have not found anything better or that passed my recipe test in the Trader Joe's smoked paprika. It's really, really good. And Victoria brand, that's a really good one as well. You can find that just about anywhere. And what else? So salt, you got your pepper, you got your paprika, you got your garlic, optional onions if you want to put it in there, your vegetable broth, and then you want to add about a quarter to a half cup of nutritional yeast. Now, I know that sounds odd, but trust me, it makes the flavor fantastic. Fantastic. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but when I started playing with the recipe, I was like, well, this is it. This is it. Now, normally I use nutritional yeast in like the macaroni and cheese recipe, but I found that it is fantastic. It just marries with the broth, and it is phenomenal. Okay, just trust me, it's phenomenal. Now, you can find nutritional yeast, again, at all the stores that I mentioned, at Whole Foods, at Sprouts, at Food for Yield, at Thrive Online, Amazon, of course. And the other ingredient, if you want to heighten the flavor, and if you like tomatoes, use fire roasted diced tomatoes. That actually flavors, again, add another layer of flavor to the water, and it just tastes fantastic. And then once you have all that in the water, you incorporate it and boil the water and let it cook a little bit and marry and get those flavors blended. Then you add your greens and cook as you normally would. And that is how you prepare plant-based greens. I forgot one more important ingredient. Liquid smoke. Liquid smoke. That's the magic ingredient. Besides, because what you want to do is get the smoky flavor in there. So you're not getting it from meat. So the alternative is using the smoked paprika and the liquid smoke. And guess what? The liquid smoke is vegan. If you look on the bottle, they have different brands out there. So I'm not going to call out any particular brand. There's one that I like, but they all say vegan. So yes, you can use that because it's vegan friendly. And don't overuse it. Just add about a tablespoonful to every pound or half pound. Well, yeah, every pound and a half to 2 pounds, because you don't need a lot. Just test it and see if it's if you like the flavor, and then stop. If you feel like you need more, then add a little more. But this really takes it up a notch, and it adds that smoky flavor that we normally get from either turkey tails or wings or fat back or whatever you put, the salted pork or whatever. It takes the place of that. And I'm telling you, once you make these greens, you may not go back. You may not go back to eating the ones with meat. So try it out. Okay, so no questions so far. I guess you all are just taking notes. Well, I'm glad I got these questions beforehand in my inbox, because you guys are really quiet right now, but maybe some of you who've joined are the ones that sent me these questions. Okay, so cooked vegetables and your sides. Now, I'm not sure if you saw my post earlier, but I made some fabulous Brussels sprouts, and I used, this is a seasoning blend that I created, and it's for vegetables and snacks. Now, some people have ordered it because they don't want to make their own or figure out what makes their side dishes and vegetables taste good. So in my book feed, there are 3 recipes. You have one that's for vegetables, you have one that's for tacos, you have one that's a ranch flavor that you can put on chips and popcorn. And again, if you have a copy of feed, you can find it in the snacks and seasonings section. And it has all of it. That won't be exactly like this, but it's a version of it. And you can use that on your roasted vegetables. Now, you can use some basic ingredients like salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and just put some, you dress it a little bit with some grapeseed oil or avocado oil. You know, we cook with avocado oil or grapeseed oil, not with olive oil or coconut oil, because those will burn easily, and the flavor will get lost in the cooking process because it doesn't have a high smoke point. So we always cook with avocado oil or what did I just say? Avocado oil and what? I just lost my train of thought. Grapeseed oil. There you go. Grapeseed oil. You just toss it with those spices and flavors, and then you put it on a sheet pan and you let it roast. I would say cut them in half first. You know, you're going to prepare them. Of course, you're going to wash them and trim the ends, but cut them in half. They'll cook quicker and they'll roast really nicely. And let me give you this tip, because you probably already know it, but I'm so excited. I just recently purchased an air fryer. Now, you do all the things that I said and you prepare them the way that I suggested. You throw them in that air fryer, and in 10 minutes, 400 degrees, and it is done, and they are perfect. As a matter of fact, the ones I made earlier that I posted earlier, I made those in the air fryer. So yeah, so I'm telling you, that is a time-saving device. Again, I'm not being paid for it, but this is a time saver for you. So this is a kitchen hack. If you have one, utilize it. If not, just place your Brussels sprout halves on a a cookie sheet that's lined with parchment paper, and that should be done within about 20 or 30 minutes at 375. Okay, so that was my last question that I got in the inbox. But if you are interested in getting living food recipes to be made and eaten with love, you can order it. You can still order it. And some of you who live locally, like the Chicago area, if you order tonight, you'll have it by Wednesday because it's a one-day delivery in the Chicago area. And I also have the Amazon Kindle version. So if you feel like you don't have time and you're living somewhere other than the Chicago area and you would like to order a copy, you can get one for immediate download on your Kindle at Amazon.com. Just Google Feed Regina Dillard and you should be able to find it. It'll pop right up. Yeah, and it's $7.99 for the download, a Kindle version download, or you can order the book for $14.99 at my website, shop, SHOP -ISW.com. So that's shop-ISW.com. And if you live in the Chicago area, that'll get to you by Wednesday if you order tonight. Okay, so any other questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. I don't know how long we've been on. I can't see, so let me put my glasses on so I can see how long. Okay, so great. So we got like 3.5 minutes. I'm going to go through this really quickly. I promised you that I would give you some secrets to my killer vegan mac and cheese. So you just prepare the macaroni as you normally would, as the box says. You boil them, And so what you're going to do, you're going to toss it with a little vegan butter. And then you're going to add, and so to a blender, you're going to add a 1 8-ounce block of sprouted tofu. Make sure it is sprouted and organic tofu. You're going to put that in a blender, as well as 1.5 teaspoon of mustard, 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika. You're going to put a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and then you're going to put a block of the Miyoko's mozzarella cheese in there. And you're going to blend all of that up together. And you are going to have the most fabulous cheese sauce. Now it's going to be really thick. So in order to make it silky, you're going to add a can of coconut milk, not the cream, but the coconut milk. And once you combine those flavors, baby, you can pour it right from the blender into your noodles, bake. Now, if you want to top it off with some vegan shredded cheese, even better. That just takes it up. But that is the secret to my killer mac and cheese. Okay, and that puts us at 28 minutes and 3 seconds. So I'm going to open it up for some questions again, and just answer any questions. I'm here for you. I'm here to answer any questions you have. So we went over the uses of coconut milk to replace dairy milk. We talked about mashed celery root, an easy gravy, an easy pie crust, greens, how to make the greens fabulous, your cooked vegetables and how to liven those up with some really great seasonings, and macaroni and cheese. So that's it. And I'm going to post tomorrow a video on how to make I'm going to get you all away from that canned cranberry sauce. But this video is going to be about how to make a great fresh cranberry sauce. I don't have anything against canned. I grew up on canned, but I'm telling you, you try the fresh cranberry sauce, and it has Cabernet in it and some Cointreau. Baby, you won't go back. I can almost guarantee you, but I know some of you are sold on that can with the little ridges, imprinted in it. But it's okay. It's okay. You like what you like. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'm going to sign off for tonight. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving.